got the chance to sit down with Oklahoma's general manager, Jim Nagy. Previously, big dog at the Senior Bowl, put the whole thing together. Now putting together the roster over at Oklahoma. We talked roster construction. We talked John Mateer. We talked his first conversation with Brent Venables. But before we get to that conversation, want to make sure y'all know GM All Access is powered by Teamworks, baby. Win the revenue-sharing era with Teamworks General Manager, purpose-built for collegiate athletics, trusted by 99% of D1 NCAA institutions. Teamworks is uniquely designed by those who understand the challenges of college athletics, strategically allocate resources, optimize investments, evaluate your roster, and build championship-caliber teams, all on one integrated platform. Check out teamworks.com/general-manager to learn more. Appreciate Teamworks bringing you all this conversation. Here's Oklahoma's GM, Jim Nagy. So, Jim, when I saw that you took the GM job at Oklahoma, my first thought was, why? Like, great deal with the Senior Bowl. I mean, you built that thing into what it was. What was the reason for you to pivot to college and ultimately Oklahoma?
Hi, JD, good to be on with you, man. Start off with that, but thanks for having me on. I mean, why OU? A lot of people have asked me that because it's OU. As simple as that. Because I didn't want to. It wasn't a perfect time for me to transition to something else because my daughter is still in high school and those moves are tough. And so family-wise, it wasn't perfect. But when OU calls, man, it was a great phone call to get. And if I was going to do this, kind of make my first jump into college football after being a lifer NFL person, it was going to be somewhere we could win at the highest level. And they've obviously proven they could do that at Oklahoma. You walk in the front door down here and there's, 7 national championship trophies and 7 Heisman. So there's nothing you can't do at Oklahoma. And really believe in Coach Venables. It was a great interview with him. Got to know him a little bit when he was the D coordinator at Clemson, but really when I came out here on the visit and, the two of us connected, I just feel like we could do a lot of special things here.
What was that first conversation with Coach Venables like? Because I'm imagining him on the phone, kind of the gravelly voice, talking ball already. Like, what was the conversation like for you before you ended up taking that job in Norman?
Yeah, it was, we're two pretty intense guys. Like, I've never seen myself as an intense person, but my wife tells me I am all the time. So I guess she's right.
Sure.
But I'll say this, it didn't take very long for the two of us. We were kind of on the edge of our seats pretty quickly talking football. And that's when I knew this was going to be a really good fit. He's really passionate about what he does on the coaching side. I'm very passionate about just the value of scouting and what we could bring here to this operation. So yeah, it was a great first conversation.
And you mentioned like the value of scouting and how that's honestly in the world of the transfer portal and the way that these kids are being earlier developed at the high school level. Like, what has been the most eye-opening thing for you pivoting from what you were doing scouting college players to, NFL rosters eventually to now scouting college players when they're in the portal to eventually join Oklahoma?
I would say this. I tried to go into this job with my eyes wide open, but there's been a couple things that have caught me off guard. I would say the biggest thing, maybe more than anything, is all these guys know what each other makes. I've ever shared with another grown man or anyone what I make for a living, but these guys all talk. So you get into portal time. You got to understand if you're going out in the spring portal, for instance, like we did, and you're bringing in players and acquiring players, then the rest of the roster you got to count on them knowing what you're spending in that portal. So that was probably the biggest thing. Other than that, hasn't been too many surprises.
That's super interesting because I would think, just what you're saying, in our world, once you're finished with college, you're not talking about, well, hey, I make this much with your coworkers. But in college football, in a locker room, I can see how that ends up playing a factor. Do you ever have to communicate to your current roster when you're thinking about bringing somebody in? Hey, we think this guy's going to make X amount. You make this amount, just so you know. Is there any of that going on to kind of get out ahead of those conversations, or how does that look?
No, we haven't operated that way. We didn't in the spring portal. Sure. No, and then again, I don't think we're going to move forward that way. Again, we have a job to do. They have a job to do. So no, I don't see us going that route.
Well, John Mateer got there before you to understand that, but just seeing him this spring, what's been your impressions of him and just his progress overall in this system that he comes over with, Ben Arbuckle and Coach Goose?
Yeah, so before I came on the interview, I tried to familiarize myself with the roster, at least at a decent surface level, so I could, when I spoke to Brent, we could talk roster a little bit. So I did. I watched 3 games of John, and I'll say this: after going through the spring, he's better than I thought. As one of those guys, every day you kind of felt a little better about what he could do and what he has that a lot of quarterbacks. I don't think you can coach it. I don't know about you, JD. When I go out to practice, I love standing behind the offense or behind the defense and kind of getting that view of kind of what the quarterback is seeing. And his vision is off the charts, man. Like he sees things that I don't see. Certainly, so he's really good. He's a really good player. We're excited about him. I've told some of the local media guys, a couple of which are big time former OU players, like, can we pump the brakes a little bit on the John Mateer talk? But no, everyone's really excited, and not just the player; it's the kind of guy John is behind the scenes and what he's done. When we've brought guys out in the spring portal and the job he's done helping recruit those players, he's a real dude. He's a real dude. There's a lot of guys that are good players on the field, or they're great guys behind the scenes in the locker room. It doesn't always marry up that the two things are, guy does both things well. And so, yeah, he's going to be a great leader for this team. His familiarity in Coach Arbuckle's offense is huge for the guys. We've got all these guys, transfer portal wide receivers, and a couple offensive linemen are new. So he's getting everybody up to speed. It's like having another coach out there. So, yeah, we're just excited for him, excited for what he's going to do in the SEC. I know he's chomping at the bit. And all we tried to do in the spring portal was bringing in a Jaden Ott. And, it's my job to surround a great quarterback like that with as many weapons as possible. I feel like we did that with, the resources we had in the spring, and now just excited to see what happens when the fall gets going.
I was going to say that spring portal, I think a lot of people, once you got hired, got fired up for that spring portal because of what we saw, the Jim Nagy effect sprinkling a little Jaden Ott. What was the philosophy for you when it came to attacking that spring portal?
Yeah, it was really just go after guys that are going to make an impact. We weren't really attacking depth level players. I mean, we really like our depth. I mean, this is a good roster, man. I mean, you look at last year's record, certainly doesn't reflect, I feel, the overall talent level of where this roster's at right now. I think they've done a really nice job. Last year, obviously, a bunch of hard luck injuries, stuff you don't count on, really kind of historic level injuries on the offensive side, especially. They were decimated. So we're going out and really trying to get guys that can plug in right away and be impact players, starter level players. So you get a Jake Michaela who could start at guard or center for us. We feel like he's a draftable level player. Even if the draft were this year, we felt like he played at a draftable level. Jaden Ott is certainly somebody that can score from anywhere on the field. He's a big play waiting to happen, which will be a really cool addition to our offense. He can do a lot in the pass game as well. Just get him in space. We added a kicker that has been pretty automatic from inside 40, which is a weapon for those guys. We added Jermichael Carter here late, a receiver we think is going to be in the mix for a real role in that receiver room. I think a lot has to shake out in August in that receiver room, but certainly a guy that's going to come in and add to that competition. So that was a cool ad. So yeah, we just that was the goal. Just add guys that can plug in and start or have a significant role.
And I can tell just by the way you're talking about the portal ads to the roster that you walked into to everything Brent Venables has done. Like, there's a lot of excitement in Norman, and I think the college football public is starting to maybe catch on to that based on the buzz from the spring. What excites you the most about where Oklahoma is right
now? Second year in the SEC and getting healthy. And again, this is a good roster. I mean, Oklahoma's Oklahoma. And I think people lose sight of last year. You go 6-7. That's just such a shocking year for our fan base and across college football. 2 years ago, they won 10 games. We're 1 year removed from a 10-win season. I think people forget that. So we've gotten bigger in the trenches, which is you knew was going to be the transition into the SEC. So we've added size on both sides of the ball on the offensive and defensive line, which is big. And then getting John Mateer, he's a difference maker. You got to have that guy. If you're going to win at a really high level, in which they've done at Oklahoma, you just look in recent history with Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray and, all the quarterbacks have had Baker. They've had really high-end quarterback play here. And now to bring in John, I think he's kind of the next one in line. And I'm not trying to put pressure on John. He and I have talked about this, but he's built for that. I'm not putting any pressure on John. He's a great quarterback. And so I think there's a lot of excitement, because of John and some of the additions, as there should be. So here we go. We got Illinois State kicking off here shortly, and we'll see where it ends up.
I mean, just to pile into what you said a second ago, I feel like it's almost the expectation whenever you walk in as the quarterback at Oklahoma. Like, you see all those Heisman trophies, all those names on those jerseys that have played in that stadium before you. Like, I think it's probably almost unavoidable to have an expectation like that when you are ultimately the guy under center at Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, even with Dylan Gabriel, 2 years ago they won 10 games with Dylan. He was just back here in the building a couple days ago, fresh off the draft where he's the third-round draft pick. So, again, if Dylan Gabriel were here last year and not in Eugene, Oregon, what does that record look like with Dylan here? Probably a lot different, I would guess. And that's taking no shots at anybody else. But,
Sure.
The young quarterbacks who playing, they were young guys. And the SEC is a really hard league to play in as a freshman. And they played a pair of freshman quarterbacks last year. I mean, that's not an ideal situation. So, the quarterback history here has been great. I think you look across college football, there's not too many schools over the last 10, 15 years that match up at the quarterback position with OU.
Jim, last question for you, man. Appreciate all your time. What would you say is your differentiating factor for you as a GM that gives you an edge in this space of the transfer portal and NIL and all those things?
I would say, JD, right now the biggest edge is the staff we're building on the scouting side. We haven't announced the full staff yet. We've got a couple additions here coming in the next couple of weeks that we're really excited about. Bringing in one guy with more NFL experience than myself. We're kind of contemporaries, got into the NFL around the same time. And then with me transitioning to the Senior Bowl, he passed me up with years in the league. But yeah, I'm really excited about this staff and what we can do. Take so much of the heavy lift on the evaluation side off the coaches. So they can really focus on the recruiting. They can focus on the retainment. That's a real part. We can't get away from that. You can't lose sight of the fact that it's one thing to get players on campus. It's another thing to make sure they have a great experience here and they feel like they're being developed. And with the scouting staff taking so much of that lift off them, that's what our coaches are going to be able to do now. I'm just really fired up about this staff and really the buy-in so far from the coaches side. They really see the value in what we're going to bring, which is great. There's going to be great cohesion and collaboration. So that's been really fun so far. This has really been an energizing couple months here in Norman for me personally, not to make it about myself, but just getting back around players and coaches again has been awesome. And so I think there's an excitement in the air here. I think everyone is ready to get that taste out of their mouths from last year and get rolling on this thing. But JD, if this was the last question, I'm going to jump in with you.
Please.
I wanted to bring up, so what's this I hear about you having a blog in college when you were at Cornell that you're coming for Kirk Herbstreit's job? Was that really a thing? Is that a bad rumor, or did that really happen?
You know what? I know exactly who your source is on that, so I'll have to follow up after this. So there was so I go to school. There's no broadcasting major, and I'm like, man, I want to get into sports media some way, somehow. How do I do this? And so through a project I want to say it was like a creative writing class. It was start a blog, do a couple posts, and then, turn that into the teacher or whatever. And so I did it, and I was like, man, this is like, there's no rules, talk about college football. This is pretty fun. The blog has since been deleted, but it was titled Coming for a Certain College Football Analyst's Job. And that was something like, I was like sending this in team group chats. I was sending this to coaches on staff. Like, it was total tongue in cheek, like a good time. But that was, I like to think, the minor leagues for me figuring out how to eventually do this and speak on camera. There was no on-camera stuff, so we're all good there. But it was, a lot of writing filled with typos and takes and whatever it was at that point in time. But that is hilarious. You brought that up. Well, man, I appreciate that.
I love it, man. No, JD, you've done an awesome job. I mean, what you've done so far, creating this, creating this niche for yourself in the space is awesome. And again, the coach that shared that with me, he did say you're one of his favorite humans he's ever coached, man. He loves you. So he was bringing that up, and he wanted me to drop it on you, but he said a ton of nice things after sharing that little piece of your history. So
That's
I just
awesome.
want to drop it on you.
I was so shook where that was headed. I was like, what am I about to get asked? And I started to put it together in my mind. That's awesome. Jim, I appreciate you so much, man. We're fired up. We bought a lot of stock transparently in the Sooners for this fall, so we're excited to cash that in here in a few short months. Thanks again for coming on.
All right, JD. Hope to see you at SEC Media Days next, man. Thanks for having me on.